wake to silence so complete it feels like a sin. Not the quiet of aftermath, not the hush before artillery. This is older than that, heavier, a silence that presses inward, like the universe is holding its breath to see if I deserve to keep breathing. My eyes open slowly, each blink dragging pain through my skull, and the first thing I notice is the sky. It is wrong, not storm dark, not smoke. A bruised infinity of violet and black stretches above me, split by colossal structures that pierce the heavens like spears driven into God's chest. Stars burn dimly as if ashamed to shine here. I push myself up, armor grinding, joints screaming. My cog armor is battered but intact, scratched by battles. I remember, and some I don't. The air smells of incense and rusted blood. Beneath my boots, the ground is stone, but carved faces, thousands of them, human faces frozen in agony, fused into the floor like a warning carved by a mad god. I stagger back, heart hammering, and that's when I understand I'm not on Syrah anymore. The silence breaks with a sound like a cathedral screaming. Massive bells toll somewhere beyond sight, each peal vibrating through my bones. I feel it in my teeth, in my scars, in places I didn't know could feel fear anymore. This isn't a battlefield. This is a monument to suffering. I reach for my lancer out of instinct. The weight of it grounds me, familiar, real. I whisper Dom's name without meaning to, then swallow the ache that follows. He isn't here. Neither is Anya. Neither is anyone I ever bled for. Whatever world this is, it swallowed me whole. Then I see them. Giants emerge from the drifting ash, 8 feet tall at least, encased in armor so thick it looks grown rather than forged. Their pauldrons are carved with skulls and scripture, their helms shaped like death made holy. Red optics lock onto me with mechanical indifference. One raises a weapon the size of a mortar, and I feel the air scream as it charges. They don't speak, they judge. Instinct saves me. I dive as the ground explodes where I stood, stone and bone erupting in a storm of shrapnel. The shockwave hurls me into a pillar carved from fused skeletons. Pain flares, but I roll, raise my rifle, and fire. The lancer roars beautiful, familiar, and for half a second I think I've got a chance. The rounds spark against ceramite armor, biting but not breaking. Then the chainsaw bayonet screams as I charge, slamming into one of them with everything I have. Teeth grind. Sparks fly. The impact rattles my bones. He doesn't scream. He barely reacts. A gauntleted hand backhands me across the chamber, and I slam into a wall hard enough to crack it. My vision blurs. Blood fills my mouth. The giant steps forward, weapon aimed, and speaks in a voice like a cathedral collapsing. Unidentified abomination. By the will of the God Emperor you will be purged. God-Emperor. The words echo wrong in my head. Before he can fire, a new voice cuts through cold, commanding, ancient. The giants freeze instantly. From the shadows steps a figure draped in crimson and gold, purity seals fluttering like the wings of dead angels. His eyes burn with intelligence, and something far worse, certainty. Wait, he says. This one is interesting. He looks at me like a man studying a weapon pulled from a lost age. You are not of this reality, he continues, yet you endure. I spit blood and force myself to stand. Story of my life. For the first time since I woke up here, the silence changes. It listens, and deep in the back of my skull. Something ancient stirs, something vast and amused, as if the universe itself just leaned closer to see what I'll do next. The first thing I learn about this world is that mercy is considered a flaw, and the second is that survival earns you chains instead of praise. They drag me through corridors that stretch longer than cities, corridors carved from black stone and faith. Every wall etched with prayers so old they've fossilized into hatred. The air is heavy with incense and ozone, and beneath it all blood, always blood. Old and fresh mixed together until the smell becomes holy. I am marched past rows of kneeling humans, millions of them, foreheads pressed to cold metal floors, whispering litanies in perfect unison. Their voices a tidal wave of desperation. Some look up when I pass. Their eyes are hollow, emptied by belief. Others smile at me with broken teeth, as if witnessing my suffering will bring them closer to salvation. I realize then that this Imperium doesn't worship a god because he saves them. It worships him because he never will. They bring me before a chamber so vast I can't see the ceiling. Only darkness layered atop darkness, pierced by beams of sickly golden light. At the center sits a throne, not a seat, but a machine of agony, a scaffold of cables, bones, and forgotten science, and on it, something that was once a man, the Emperor of mankind, or what remains of him. I feel him before I understand him, unbearable pressure behind my eyes, a weight pressing down on my soul like gravity made sentient. I fall to one knee without choosing to. Everyone does. Even the giants. He does not speak, not with words. His presence crawls into my mind like cold fingers. Sifting through memories, I buried deep Dom's final smile, Anya's tired hope, the faces of soldiers who followed me into hell because I told them we'd make it out. The Emperor sees it all, and something like recognition stirs in the psychic void between us. Not kindness, not approval, understanding. You endure, his will whispers, not in language, but in meaning. You persist where others break. You are shaped by war. Yeah, I mutter under my breath, jaw clenched. And look where it got me. The Inquisitor kneels beside me, his voice reverent. He sees potential, a weapon not forged by us. A soul tempered by endless war, yet unclaimed by the warp. Unclaimed. That word makes something twist inside me, because I can feel it now. The warp, watching from behind reality like a predator behind glass. It presses against my thoughts, whispering promises dressed as memories. It shows me Dom alive again, shows me Syrah unbroken, shows me peace. And for a terrifying second, I want to listen. Pain explodes in my skull as the Emperor's presence surges, burning the visions away. I scream, collapsing to my hands, blood dripping from my nose onto the sacred floor. The Inquisitor does not move to help me. This is a test. Everything here is a test. You will fight, he says calmly. You will bleed. You will inspire, or you will die. I laugh, a broken, cracked sound that echoes far too loud in the chamber. Sounds familiar. They don't give me time to rest. They never do. I am taken from the throne room and hurled into the fires of war within hours. A world named Carthax is dying, its cities consumed by traitor legions who worship gods that feast on despair. Drop pods scream through the atmosphere like falling coffins, and I am inside one of them, strapped in beside warriors who pray for death as fiercely as they fight against it. Impact hits like the fist of an angry god. The doors blow open, and hell rushes in firestorms, screaming civilians. Traitor Astartes marching through flames like living tanks. I move without thinking. Shoot, reload, move, kill. The rhythm of war returns like an old addiction, but something is wrong. Each kill sends a tremor through me. Not guilt, power. I feel stronger, faster. The warp coils tighter around my soul, tasting me. The Chaos Warriors roar my name in mockery and awe alike. Phoenix. They chant, reborn in war. I don't know when it happens, only that at some point, I stop wondering if I belong here. I start wondering how long until this universe breaks before I do. And far away, beyond sight and sanity, something laughs. I stop dreaming of home sometime after the third battlefield. When sleep itself begins to feel like a lie the universe tells to soften the cruelty of waking, because every time I close my eyes now, something else opens them in my place. Something vast and patient and old, watching from behind reality like a hunter behind tall grass. And I know deep in the marrow of my bones that the warp has learned my name. The Imperium moves me constantly after that, never letting me settle, never letting roots grow, because they know what happens when things like me are allowed to stay. I become a weapon passed from front to front, a rumor whispered by guardsmen huddled in trenches. The man who doesn't die, the one the warp recoils from. On Vihalaris Prime the sky rains blood for 3 straight days. And I walk through it while men around me scream and claw their eyes out from visions they can't unsee. I hear the whispers too soft at first, almost kind, offering peace, offering rest, offering faces I loved and buried. Dom stands at the edge of my vision again, not broken this time, not screaming, just smiling the way he did before everything went to hell. You've done enough, Marcus, he says, and it almost breaks me, because for a moment I want to believe him, but then I remember the cost of believing, and I force myself forward. Every step an act of defiance against a universe that feeds on surrender. The warp doesn't like that. It presses harder, buildings bleed, time folds in on itself. I watch soldiers die before they're born. Watch prayers crawl out of mouths and turn into insects that burrow back into skulls. The sky splits open and something vast peers through. Something that recognizes me, not as prey but as property. I feel it staking a claim. When the demons come, they don't charge. They circle. They chant my name in voices stolen from the dead. Phoenix, Phoenix, Phoenix. Each syllable burns. Each one tries to pull something loose inside me. Something furious and endless and eager to answer. I fight like a man drowning in fire. My chainsaw screams until its teeth melt. My rifle jams, and I beat a demon to death with it anyway. I am no longer counting kills. I am counting heartbeats. I feel the warp pushing into my wounds, tasting my rage, learning its shape. And then it shows me the truth, visions not of temptation, but of inevitability. A future where I stand crowned in blood and scripture. Where armies kneel not because they are forced to, but because they believe. Where the Imperium kneels too. No, I snarl, even as my knees buckle. I don't belong to you. That's when it answers not with words, but with understanding. It doesn't want to own me. It wants to become me. The ground ruptures as a demon prince claws its way into reality. Wings of bone unfolding, armor etched with the prayers of civilizations long dead. Its presence crushes hope itself. Guardsmen fall screaming, some in worship, some in madness. The creature looks at me the way a craftsman looks at a flawed masterpiece. You are not broken, it says inside my skull. You are unfinished. I rise on shaking legs, blood pouring from cracks in my armor, vision blurring, but something inside me locks into place. Not faith, not rage, resolve, the kind forged when you've lost everything and still refuse to kneel. I charge. The impact shakes the world. We collide in a storm of screaming metal and unreality. And as my blade tears into its flesh, something impossible happens. The warp recoils, not in pain, in surprise. When the demon finally dies, it doesn't scream, it fades. Like a thought forgotten, the sky seals itself. The whispers fall silent. I stand alone amid the ruin, breathing hard, armor glowing faintly with symbols I never carved but somehow understand. I feel heavier, anchored, changed, somewhere far beyond sight. Something ancient shifts its gaze, not in anger, not in hatred, but in careful interest. I don't know what I am anymore, but I know this universe has noticed me. The war does not end after Valhala's wars never end here. They only change shape, but something does change. And I feel it in the way the Imperium looks at me now. Not with AW, not with trust, but with calculation. The kind you reserve for weapons that might one day turn in your hands. I am no longer deployed like a soldier. I am unleashed, dropped into battles already written off as lost. Into war zones where even space marines hesitate to tread. They don't brief me anymore. They observe me. Server skulls follow my movements. Inquisitorial sigils glow when I pass. I hear whispers behind sealed doors, words like anomaly, contamination, potential heresy. They fear what I've become, but fear is the Imperium's native language, and so they translate it into control. On the world of Kellad's Fall, I walk through trenches filled with frozen corpses, their faces locked in silent prayers, and I feel the warp pulling at me again, not violently this time, but patiently, like a tide that knows the shore will eventually give. The sky bleeds ash, and the sun hangs fractured, as if reality itself has been wounded too many times to heal. I fight beside the Adeptus Astartes again, but now they watch me differently. I see it in the tilt of their helms, the fraction of a second too long before they advance. They call me ally, but their bolters never quite lower around me. During battle, I move faster than before, strike harder, endure wounds that should end me, and each time I do, I feel something inside tighten, like a knot being pulled closed. The warp isn't whispering anymore, it's listening, studying, learning how I resist it, how I refuse to become what it wants. That refusal becomes a kind of beacon. On the plains of Gethsemane we face a chaos incursion so vast the horizon burns. Demons pour from a wound in the sky, their screams harmonizing into a song that gnaws at the soul. The Imperial lines break within minutes. I watch guardsmen drop their weapons and claw at their own faces, begging unseen gods for mercy. I should feel despair. Instead, I feel clarity. This is what I was made for, not glory, not salvation, but to stand where everything else breaks. I charge alone into the breach, and something extraordinary happens. The warp hesitates. Reality stabilizes around me like a scar refusing to reopen. Demons falter, their forms blurring, their confidence shattering as if they cannot comprehend resistance that does not feed them. That's when I realize the truth, and it chills me more than any demon ever could. I am not immune to the warp, I am incompatible with it. My rage does not nourish it. My grief does not empower it. My will does not bend into worship or despair. I am an anomaly the warp cannot digest, and that terrifies it. I feel its pressure intensify, probing deeper, searching for a crack, a trauma it can twist. It finds memories of Sarah burning, of Dom dying in my arms, of everything I failed to Zevan for a moment. I almost break, but then something new happens. The memories don't weaken me, they anchor me. They remind me why I fight, not for gods, not for empires, but for the people who never got to choose. The warp recoils violently, as if burned, and the demonic tide collapses in on itself, screaming into nothingness. When the battle ends, the field is silent except for the crackle of dying fires. The surviving space marines stare at me in something close to fear. An inquisitor approaches, his face pale beneath his hood, and for the first time, his voice trembles. "You should not exist," he says. I meet his gaze, exhausted, bleeding, unbroken. "Yea," I reply. "I get that a lot." Above us, unseen by mortal eyes, something vast and ancient shifts its attention. Not the warp this time. Something older, something colder, a presence that has watched galaxies die and empires rot. And for the first time since I arrived in this cursed universe, I feel not hunted but measured. Whatever I am becoming, the Imperium knows now. I am not just a weapon, I am a problem. The moment I understand the truth, it is already too late. The Imperium does not fear chaos the way it fears uncertainty. Chaos is an enemy they can name, catalog, ritualize. Me, I am a question they cannot answer, a variable that does not obey their scripture or their math. And in the Imperium of man, anything that cannot be controlled must be erased. I feel it before I see Iton absence in the noise of war. Vox traffic cuts out. Orbital signatures shift. The air grows heavy, metallic, like the pause before a firing line exhales death. I stand amid the ruins of Gethsemane, blood drying on my armor, the echoes of demonic screams still fading from the stones. When the sky darkens, not with warp storms, but with ships, Imperial ships. Battle barges slide into low orbit, their silhouettes blotting out the wounded sun. Gun ports yawn open like the mouths of executioners. No warnings, no orders, just targeting locks crawling over my armor like cold fingers. I laugh, a short, broken sound. "So that's how it is," I mutter. The first lance strike turns a mountain into vapor. The second hits a kilometer from me, throwing me through the air like a discarded shell casing. I hit the ground hard enough to crater it, my vision exploding into white. Alarms scream inside my armor. Bones crack, something important ruptures. But I'm still breathing. The Imperium does not want me dead. They want me contained. Thunderhawks descend through the smoke. Inquisitorial sigils, burning bright. Stormtroopers fan out, weapons raised, chanting litanies of nullification. I feel it immediately. Psychic dampeners, fields designed to smother warp influence. They don't hurt, they smother. It's like being buried alive inside my own skin. I try to stand on, my body refuses. That's when I hear the voice again, not the warp, not the Emperor, but something colder. Observe, adapt, survive. That isn't a command. It's an instinct. Something ancient wakes inside my bones. Something that has watched civilizations rise and rot long before terror learned fire. My heart starts beating slower, stronger. The pain dulls, becomes data. I push up. The null fields flicker. The soldiers hesitate. That's all it takes. I move. Not fast, inevitable. Their first line opens fire. Bolter shells tear chunks from my armor, from my flesh. But I keep walking. I grab the nearest trooper and hurl him through to others. I tear a heavy weapon from its mount and turn it back on its owners. Explosions bloom like dying suns. Above us, an Inquisitor screams for containment protocols. I look up and meet his gaze through the smoke. "You should have left me alone," I say. He activates something. Pain unlike anything I've known rips through my skull. Not warp pain, not physical pain. Identity pain, like someone is trying to peel me out of myself. I drop to one knee, screaming. Memories tearing loose. Anya, Sierra, the Locust. Every war blurring together into one endless scream. And then silence, not absence, control. Something inside me locks. The pain stops. The world sharpens. I stand. Every weapon aimed at me jams at once. Every service goal drops from the sky like a stone. The Inquisitor stumbles back, eyes wide with terror. "What are you?" he whispers. I look at my hands, veins glowing faintly. Not with warp light, not with holy radiance, but with something colder, steadier. "I'm what happens," I say slowly, "when survival refuses to die." The air bends outward from me in a shockwave that flattens soldiers and shatters stone. I do not chase them as they flee. I don't need to. The message is sent. From orbit, the fleet begins to withdraw. They've made their choice, and so have I. As the smoke clears, I realize the truth that chills me more than any enemy ever could. The Imperium didn't try to kill me because I was corrupted. They tried to kill me because I was becoming independent. And in this galaxy, independence is heresy. Far above, beyond stars and gods. Something ancient stirs again, not pleased, not angry, but curious. The board has changed, and I am no longer a piece. The galaxy does not end with fire, it ends with understanding. I walk alone across a dead world whose name has already been erased from Imperial record. The sky above it is cracked like old glass, stars bleeding through the fractures. Around me lie the remains of armies' imperial chaos. Things older than both frozen mid-slaughter, as if time itself lost the will to continue. This is where it led. Not to victory, not to damnation, to stillness. I feel them now. Not just the warp. Not just the emperor. Everything. The warp coils around the edges of reality like a starving ocean. No longer whispering, no longer tempting. It knows I cannot be claimed. The emperor's presence looms from Terravast, distant, tired, his psychic gaze brushing against mine like an old man touching a scar he refuses to acknowledge. And beyond even him, something else watches, something that predates gods, that watched galaxies bloom and rot like seasonal flowers. That the truth settles into me with terrifying calm. This universe is tired, not dying - exhausted. It has been screaming for 10,000 years, fed on war, belief, and suffering, and now it doesn't know how to stop. The warp is not evil. The Imperium is not cruel by accident. They are symptoms of a cosmos that learned survival through agony and forgot any other way. And I'm Marcus Fenix, soldier of a dead world. Am an anomaly because I was forged by war but never worshipped it. The Emperor speaks at last, not with words, but with an emotion so heavy it almost breaks me. Regret. I see him clearly now, not a god, not truly. A man who tried to hold the galaxy together with his own bones, who became a prison because he was too afraid to let humanity fall. He does not command me, he asks, end it, he begs, or take my place. I laugh softly, the sound echoing across a battlefield older than history. You really don't get it, I say. I'm not here to rule, and I'm not here to burn it all down. The warp surges, sensing a choice being made. It offers me infinity, dominion, eternity, a throne built from every war ever fought. I feel its hunger, its fear. I step forward instead. I open myself not to power, but to memory, to every loss, every sacrifice, every soldier who ever stood knowing they wouldn't make it home. I don't reject the pain. I carry it. I contain it. The warp screams, not in rage, not in relief. It collapses inward, not destroyed, but quieted, folded back into itself like a storm finally allowed to rest. The gods born of it fade, starved of emotion. Demons unravel into nothing. Across the galaxy, psychers fall to their knees as the screaming in their minds stops for the first time in their lives. The Emperor exhales, and then, he dies. Not violently, not tragically, peacefully. His light disperses, not extinguished, but freed, scattering across humanity like embers, no longer chained to a throne. The Astronomicon fades, then stabilizes, softer, gentler, no longer a beacon of domination but of guidance. The Imperium fractures in the moment after. Some worlds burn, others breathe for the first time. And me, I feel myself thinning. I was never meant to survive this. I was the bridge, the pressure valve, the impossible variable that allowed the universe to change without tearing itself apart. I walk one last time across a quiet field beneath a normal sky. No screams, no prayers, just wind. I think of Dom, of Anya, of every soldier who never got to choose. I hope this was enough. I whispered. My body dissolves into light, not death, not life, something in between. A final gift to a universe learning how to exist without endless war. Far in the future, stories will be told of a warrior from another world who stood between gods and refused to kneel. They will call me many things, but I will be remembered as the one who ended the age of screaming.